I'm Jack Kennedy, and we're here to bring you the latest in MMA.
Hey everybody, my name's Hunter Boss, and what the boss says goes.
What is up everyone, my name is Keelan McNamara, and you already know what time it is.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. Well guys, UFC 272 this week, Masvidal, Colby Covington. I mean, what a fight. It's basically the BMF belt might be on the line. That's a rumor that started today. I am so excited. Nonetheless, it's going to be great. Let's get started with the news. On that very card, bit of unfortunate news, right? It's a very unfortunate news. RDA was supposed to be fighting Rafael Fiziev. That fight has fallen through because Fiziev got COVID. Well, we've been going back and forth. What opponent is he going to get? Works out that we're doing the podcast today because just recently it got announced that Renato Moicano is going to be stepping in to face RDA in a 5-round fight co-main event. Hunter, what do you think about this?
It's crazy. You know, the ball is for both men to do this short notice fight. It's very, very, very apparent, you know.
Yeah.
RDA hasn't fought in over a year, and he's stepping in on his first fight of the year in a 5-fight round against a very talented submission artist in Renato Moicano, who can also strike, though. He's got good power. They're very similar. You know, I didn't remember the name Renato Moicano off the top of my head. I did watch a few fights to warm up for this podcast, and I realized in watching both of them, they got somewhat of a similar style, a little bit. They're both very versed in striking, I would say. RDA has I think is superior in striking, but Moicano is just right behind him. I mean, he hasn't knocked anyone out yet, but you could tell his striking is still really good. He dropped Cub Swanson with a jab. He held his own against Calvin Kattar in a unanimous decision fight in which he stood most of the time. And I just think this is going to be a really good fight. I'm not disappointed as much as I thought I would be. I really wanted to see Rafael Fiziev fight, and that we've been waiting. And this fight got moved to this card just because they thought this card wasn't stacked enough, and now it's not even happening. And it hurts me to say it, but honestly, I'm fine with this outcome too because I like Moicano as well. I think Moicano is a very talented fighter. If I were to give my official prediction, I would say that Moicano, I think, will edge out a decision, a unanimous decision right here. I think he has Rafael dos Anjos hasn't stepped in the cage in over a year. And when he did step in the cage in the last 2 or 3 years, it's not like we've seen anything too surprising from him. All of his fights in the last 3 years, I would say, have been a little bit lackluster, like his Kevin Lee fight and his Paul Felder fight. I didn't see anything too special from him, honestly. And it might be because he's nearing the end of his career. I mean, he made his UFC debut, I think, in 2008. So he's been fighting for nearly, I think, 12 to 14 years.
He's
so, he could be nearing the end of his career. We'll have to see. This is a real litmus test come Saturday to see if RDA could still hold his own against these new and improved fighters that we're seeing in today's age. So I think Moicano will win, maybe unanimous decision. Actually, no. Since it is a 5-round fight, I'm going to have to say I'm going to go submission, maybe round 3.
Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have math exams coming up, please don't come to the MMA Island Podcast.
Or come to Hunter Boss. I'm no math major.
I don't know about Hunter, but I am shite at math, so please don't watch any of our videos for that. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's still a good fight, but I am pooped a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of a bit like that very famous and one of my favorite memes, actually, of Vince McMahon in that particular segment. I'm not going to go into any detail about it because we all know what I'm talking about, of the faces variously progressing. Yeah. Rafael Fiziev, all right. Islam Makhachev, oh, all right. And now it's Renato Moicano, and then kind of back to the first stage. Look, I have nothing against Renato Moicano. Very, very good fighter, very accomplished fighter. But it's not the same as the two Rafaels or Islam Makhachev stepping in. I'm not going to go into either of them because obviously both those situations suck. I hope Rafael gets better. And as for Islam, not too sure what happened there. It seemed like they both wanted it, but it didn't come to fruition. But we've got a catch weight at 160, I believe, between Renato and Rafael dos Anjos. And skill-wise, it's a very good fight. RDA and Renato are both very good pressure fighters, I would say. Very similar to what Hunter just said. They're both very well-versed in striking. Both can more than hold their own on the ground. And realistically, when you look at the skill set, there's very little to separate them. What I will say is that I do think RDA will get the decision because I think his experience will pull through in this fight. I think he's got a couple of bags. He's got a couple of tricks in his bag, especially when it comes to the ground. And I think I'd give him the edge over someone like Renato Moicano, who I would probably give the advantage to in the feet. But I think when this fight hits the deck, and it inevitably will, then that really is RDA's bread and butter. You know, very high-level black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, very, very decent wrestling, and that is his wheelhouse. So very good fight. Mad props to Renato Moicano for stepping in on a week's notice. Like Hunter said, the balls on both these guys to take this fight a week out from one of the biggest cards of the year so far. Nothing but respect to both guys, but for me, RDA gets this one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's wild because 2 fight cards in a row are being replaced by guys that I saw fight live in Houston, right? Because Moicano literally fought and won against Alexander Hernandez, 3 weeks ago now? So, again, massive credit to him. I think the fight I wanted to see most was Makhachev step in. Obviously, that didn't play out because, you know, it's one of those cursed fights, right? How many times did they book that RDA? Is it 3 times now they've tried to book Makhachev RDA? It's been a lot. Yeah. So that fight's not going to happen. Makhachev, obviously that's our next segment. Does he get the title shot next? We'll say our answers next, but most likely, probably yes. So he's in the driver's seat as far as that goes. I think RDA is a great fighter. I really do. I think he's very well rounded. What goes in favor of Moicano in this one is that he's such he's coming off a finish, a win that was a finish for him, and he's riding momentum off of that. He also is taller and lankier than Rafael dos Anjos. So those are the 2 things that go in favor for him. What does not go in favor for him, and the number one thing, in my opinion, it's not the ground game because Moicano is a jiu-jitsu guy. That's his base. That's his bread and butter. So I really don't give RDA an advantage down there. I'd say they're about equal. What I think the biggest factor is in this fight is RDA has been preparing for a 5-round fight. Moicano has been recovering from preparing for a 3-round fight. So there is no way in the world. Also, Moicano is known for tiring out in 3-round fights. This is going to be a 5-round fight against a guy who has some of the best cardio, some of the most underrated cardio we've seen in the UFC. He literally he beat Anthony Pettis to become a champion way back in the day, basically because of his cardio and his wrestling, which those are the 2 big factors here, right? I rate him about even on the ground, but the wrestling has to go to RDA. He for sure has better wrestling. If he can tire out takedown and tire out Moicano, which I think will happen, I think he gets a unanimous decision win. I don't know, or maybe he hasn't really finished a guy in a long time, RDA. So I think I'm going to go unanimous decision. I agree with Keelan. I think RDA is going to take him down, tire him out. What's interesting though is Moicano's a wild card. You know, he could throw up a knee, anything could happen. That's what's wild about it. It's why it's going to be fun. However, I do see this one going all 5 rounds for RDA to get the victory. But good fight. And still talking about the lightweight division, the stacked lightweight division. The last fight night that we saw, this is for the best of the best, of course. Islam Makhachev beat Bobby Green. Who saw that coming? Looked as good as usual, right? I mean, just took him down, mauled him. That's it. It takes 1 takedown from this guy. Does he deserve the next title shot after beating Bobby Green? Hunter, what do you think?
Yes. Yes, I do think he deserves the next title shot. If we just take a look at the top 5 in itself, there's no one in the discussion other than Justin Gaethje that deserves a title shot, and Justin's already getting one. So I think Islam's going to get it right after Gaethje. I remember Islam tweeted out saying that he'll step in against RDA in short notice. I thought that was stupid. I'm like, he's already getting the title shot. There's nothing else to prove there unless he wants more of a following, which I understand, but he's got a pretty decent following as it is right now, I'd say. So, I think he gets the next title shot. I don't think Beneil gets it because he hasn't fought. He stepped out against Islam. I don't think Poirier gets it because he's going to welterweight. Gaethje's already getting it. We talked about him already. Chandler has lost his last 2 fights. Boom, that's the top 5 right there. So there's no one else. Islam. Yeah.
No. I just said that to be controversial,
okay,
but
good.
I do.
I was going to say, I'm like, well, what do you got to back that up?
He seemed way too serious about that.
But I do have your attention now, don't I? No, look, Hunter made some really good points. I expected nothing less, but there's a couple of issues that I have with Islam Makhachev. Great a fighter as he is, no one's ever going to argue that. My first issue is that the fight with Bobby Green wasn't in the division that he wants a title shot at. That niggles me a little bit, if I'm being totally honest, because I do think you should be campaigning at the weight that you want your title shot at. I agree it was 160, wasn't it, that he fought Bobby Green at? Look, it ain't the end of the world. It's 5 pounds here, 5 pounds there. It is what it is. It niggles me a little bit, but that's not my sort of bigger issue. My bigger issue is this. Even though I really like Islam Makhachev, and even though I rate him the highest I could rate him, I'm kind of fed up of seeing him bully people on the ground who aren't good enough to fight back. I really am, and that speaks more to how good Islam is rather than how bad his opponents are. But I really want to see him fight someone who's actually going to give him a test and make him work. And really, the last guy I remember who did that was Arman Sakurian, the Armenian who fought on the main card and who absolutely ripped Joel Alvarez to pieces. By the way, that elbow is one of the most disgusting shots I've ever seen. He will be in the top 10 soon, by the way. Let me make that very clear. I like Arman Sakurian a lot. But back on to Islam Makhachev. And the only reason I'm saying he shouldn't get the next title shot, even though he will, and even though I'm not going to argue against anything Hunter said, is because we need to see the Beneil Dariush fight. I do think we do, because love it, hate it, take it one way, take it the other. Beneil Dariush is good enough to give Islam Makhachev a tough run for his money. And we have to see Islam fight someone who's of that top caliber. That's the last argument against Islam getting a title shot. Believe me, that is it. And I'm not even actively trying to put obstacles in Islam's way. I'm a big fan of his. But, Bobby Green, we expected that. He didn't take a strike. I expected that. He beat him up in 1 round, got him to the ground, and Bobby Green looked like a fish out of water. I expected all of that. It wasn't a shock to anybody. If he can fight Beneil Dariush, and if he can ragdoll Beneil Dariush, then I'll open the door for Islam Makhachev to get the next title shot. But until then, I want to see him fight someone who's actually going to make him work on the ground. That's my only reason why I wouldn't give Islam the next shot just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's the only valid reason you could really put, because even the weight class thing, then you'd have to be arguing Bobby Green is a worthy opponent enough to get a title shot off of, which he's not. Hunter, I agree with you completely. And it's more, I think this question is more of a less of a, does Islam deserve it? And just what makes sense, because it's what makes sense right now. Logically, Poirier, even if he was staying in lightweight, you couldn't give him the next title shot because he literally just lost to the champion, right? Chandler, not in the discussion right now as much as we love him. Gaethje, most logical step up next, right? It's actually crazy that there was even a question before this fight if Makhachev should get ahead of him. It's not a question. Gaethje's next, and they booked it. Gaethje, Oliveira, Makhachev is after that. Has to be. Unless we see some sort of weird bantamweight crisis main event. I'm not trying to jinx anything. The lightweight division, should be the logical step of things. For me, it's also not only because he hasn't beat the best names, right? That's the big argument, right? He hasn't beat the top names, but look at what he's been doing to every single one of his opponents, especially as of late, right? His last 3, Drew Dober, right, which he beat him, completely dominated him, of course. Like every round was like a 10-8, and then you submitted him in the last 10 seconds. Then Dan Hooker took him down and submitted him instantly with a Kimura, which you haven't seen in forever. And then obviously Bobby Green took him down and just mauled him. Makhachev is at that next level right now. He's looking unreal. And you could say he's not facing the best opponents, whatever. Right now, I think that is the logical step to take for him to get the title shot. And we're about to find out if he can beat the best opponents, because you might say someone's not beating the best opponents, but he's about to get the shot at the best opponent. So we're about to see if he really is the best or not the best. So I'm very much looking forward to that. As far as the matchup for Makhachev, though, right? You can't go wrong between Gaethje or Oliveira, but I can't help but think Oliveira would be probably the toughest matchup in this whole division for Makhachev, right? Because of his jiu-jitsu base. I don't know. A lot of fascinating things go into that Oliveira Gaethje fight, not just for their own like victory, but for who fights Makhachev next. And the odds for him are insane too. So, great win for Makhachev against Bobby Green. Again, all credit to Bobby Green for stepping in on that fight. I don't think anyone saw that going any differently. And yeah, I agree with you guys. I think logical next step has to be Makhachev for the title. So, yeah, you're still.
Yeah, look, I'm just being honest here. It gnaws at me a little bit that it isn't going to be Dariush. I think Dariush is the final step for the title, and you got to remember this is a loaded division where you really do have to make an undisputed claim to the throne. This isn't like a lot of other divisions where you can fight 1-2 top 10 opponents and then get a title shot. You got to beat everybody. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm simply saying that's the state of play in the division right now. I think if you maul someone like Beneil Dariush, who is a beast on the ground, absolutely not a problem whatsoever, given the title shot. But the other thing that I want to say about Islam Makhachev too, not that I'm trying to take anything away from him, Hooker and Green were both late notice fights as well, and they didn't have a lot of time to prepare for him. Again, not taking anything away from Islam, playing devil's advocate here. I'm simply saying if you give someone who is a Tasmanian devil in Beneil Dariush a full training camp to prepare for Islam Makhachev, and Islam can still beat that, no question in anybody's mind, given the title shot. But until that happens, doubts still linger in my head. And also, one other thing I wanted to ask you guys before we move on, Islam Makhachev opening at -425 over Oliveira.
It's crazy. It's a lot.
Honestly, I see it. I might be stupid in saying this, but I would agree with that. From what I've seen in Makhachev's just complete dominance over every opponent he's faced since his first UFC debut fight, yeah, I would agree with it. And honestly, just to address the points you made, Keelan, it's not what I know you said it's nothing taken away from Islam, but it's not like it's his fault that he hasn't faced anyone in the top 5. He's been scheduled to face Beneil Dariush. He fell out in 2 weeks' notice. He had to get a short notice fight. His fight before that against Dan Hooker, he wasn't supposed to fight Dan Hooker. His opponent fell out on short notice. If they keep scheduling these fights and they keep not happening, it's not his fault. So I'm just saying, say he goes to fight Oliveira, say he wins the title, that just leaves more fights in the future against those top 5 fighters. So I don't hate that he's going to skip these top 5s. I would prefer if he fought Beneil to start with, but we don't get what we want all the time. And honestly, it's up to Islam if he wants to refight him, because if he waits, like we just said, there's no one else that makes sense other than Islam to get a title shot after Gaethje. But in the meantime, of course he could fight Beneil. He didn't take any damage in that last fight. So I'd be fine with it. And I think all the fans would be fine with it. But it's honestly up to Islam at this point. Does he want to just skip straight to a title fight? Or does he want to go back and do maybe the right thing, that if you want to call it that, or just get more following, get more of undoubtedly opinion that he should get that title fight? It's up to Islam.
Well, he wanted to fight RDA. I'm not seeing why he wouldn't want to fight Beneil.
I don't know. We'll have to see. RDA did tweet out and said that he knew like Islam was full of shit or something like that. So maybe Islam declined it because he knew that he might get a title shot and that could hinder his title shot opportunity. I don't know. We're just kind of, it's a time thing right now. We're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, true. It's just theory more than anything, I suppose. And look, again, you made a really, really good case there, Hunter. No one's gonna argue with it. Look, he can't control who pulls out and who doesn't. If it was up to me, I'd like to see them try and book it once more. If it falls through again, then yeah, there's no other way around that. But it just leaves a little bit of doubt there, because there's no point in Beneil being number 3 if he's not going to be the final step to the gate as well, So those are just my thoughts. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with that on the surface, but like, it's just, if you're Islam Makhachev, I just don't see the point to take that chance again, because you've tried multiple times to get a fight booked and had multiple opponents fall out. And then whenever those do, like we're saying, okay, they're short notice opponents, right? So that hinders the person that's stepping in on short notice. But also Makhachev didn't have time to prepare for that, right? Dan Hooker's a completely different opponent than RDA is. And it's the same thing. Bobby Green is polar opposite from what Beneil Dariush is. So I think you got to give Makhachev some credit for that. And I think he is a phenomenal fighter. And I really think, despite all that, I still think he deserves the title shot. And I think he holds all the cards right now. And I if I'm in his position, I don't see why I would take another chance at getting a fight booked and then another fight fall out or anything like that. So yeah, I'm fine with him getting the title shot, to be honest. Well, guys, let's move on to the discussion of the week. And we are talking Jorge Masvidal, Colby Covington. What are the keys to victory for Jorge Masvidal? Hunter, get us started.
I have a general question to ask you, too.
Okay.
What do you think is the best facet of Colby Covington's game? If I were to answer it, I would say the cardio. I'd say that Colby Covington is the cardio king over here. I don't think there's anyone in the UFC who has better cardio than Colby Covington, except maybe a flyweight. And he fights, 50 pounds above it, 60 pounds above it? So We'll see. But what's the number one way to take out the cardio of a UFC fighter? You hit the body. Jorge Masvidal has some of the best body kicks in the game. The body kicks he was throwing at Nate Diaz made me wince when I was just watching over the TV over here. So honestly, if I'm going to give up my keys to victory for Masvidal, it's to attack that body of Colby Covington, because the takedowns have become less easy for Colby Covington. His cardio will diminish as time goes on. And honestly, it's just a really effective strike for Jorge. So I think body strikes are key for fighting Colby Covington, as well as just relentless pressure. I don't think you give Colby Covington any time to breathe, even though he does the same thing to his opponent. So it's going to be a tough fight for Jorge, don't get me wrong. And it's going to be a tough fight for Colby as well. But if you want a key to victory, it's to go to the body.
Yeah, I really like that analysis, Hunter, and I have no arguments with it. There's a couple of things that I will add, but I think you've laid the basis of how Jorge Masvidal will win this fight if he's going to. Jorge Masvidal has to fight this fight as if he's fighting Nate Diaz for that BMF belt again. He's got to back him up, not give him an ounce of room to move or he's in trouble, and he's got to light that midsection up, and he's got to light it up constantly. Because like you just said, I mean, to give a different answer, I would argue his wrestling, no shock, is his best facet of his game, but the cardio is literally the heart and the engine of that game. So like that a lot. What Jorge Masvidal has got to do is do exactly what he was doing against Nate for those first 2.5 rounds. Use that Mickey Ward-like shot to the liver, that southpaw left hand to smash that midsection, smash it repeatedly, get Covington hurt, kick that midsection like it's a bloody football, and then back him up against the cage and tee off on him as much as you can, because you've really, really got to hurt Colby Covington in the body to stop him, because he is kind of like a tank, and that he will just keep rolling forward as long as you let him. And the other thing that I'm going to say, because I know Jack has probably got a few very good things to add here as well, the last thing Jorge Masvidal has to do, or rather not do, is he cannot back up and counter strike. If he starts hitting the reverse gear, Covington's going to go for the takedown. Eventually, he's going to land one, and Jorge's not going to be able to get back to his feet, because Colby's smothering wrestling is going to be too much for Jorge, great as I think he is. So those are my 2 keys to victory that I would give Jorge. Jack, hit us with what you've got.
No, I like that a lot, and I think you guys nailed it. I mean, whenever you look at Hunter, that's such a great question you posed at the beginning, because I think there are 2 things, right? I think it like Keelan said, it's got to be the wrestling and the cardio. That is Colby Covington's game. Another one, the volume, would be the other key to victory that I'll add, right? Because he doesn't have power in his strikes, but what he does is he beats you just by nonstop going forward and landing punches. So Jorge Masvidal, a lot of his problems against Kamaru Usman, I'm going to be talking about the first fight and the second fight, because although Usman and Covington are different fighters, they are very similar, which is why both Usman versus Covington fights are so good, because they stand and just have to fight. The only difference is, and why Jorge Masvidal has a great chance in this, is Covington does not possess the power that Kamaru Usman does or the striking ability. So, you guys nailed it, right? You gotta work the body for sure. Slow down the cardio, right? Another thing I'd like to add: leg kicks. Jorge Masvidal has some great leg kicks. He needs to be smacking those throughout the entire fight. A lot of guys will do that early and then kind of forget about it as the fight goes on because they get tired. The entire fight, he needs to be hitting that lead leg, making Colby think about it every single time he wants to shoot him for a takedown, right? The other thing is gotta be and more about just because defending the takedown, obviously, right? More than that, the reason he lost the first time against Kamaru Usman, it's not his takedown defense, right? Jorge Masvidal has really worked on his takedown defense, that phenomenal camp they have in American Top Team. What he needs to work on is getting out of the clinch. A lot of times, Kamaru Usman would do this to him, and both of his fights and some other wrestlers, Masvidal, whenever he's facing a guy that poses the threat of a takedown, like Keelan said, will back up. If he's backed up, not only can Colby shoot, but he can also control the clinch situation and then win the fight based off of just holding him in the clinch situation for a long time and getting small shots off, right? If you're Jorge Masvidal, you need to crack Colby Covington hard, back him up. Do not go backward like Keelan said, because that is absolutely another key, right? You cannot back up against Colby Covington because that is where Colby thrives. All Colby wants to do and all he does in the majority of his fights, every fight that Colby wins, right, which is most of his fights, he does not take a back step. You rarely see him take a back step. And I would argue the majority is the same for Jorge Masvidal. The fights that he wins, he does not take a back step. So the thing is, who's going to take the back step first? I know you're going to be worried about the takedown, but I think Jorge Masvidal needs to stand his ground. I really worry about the cardio for Jorge Masvidal the longer this fight goes on, right? With how much pressure Colby puts on him. But as Masvidal can crack him early and make him think about the leg kicks, the body shots, Masvidal is saying, I'm going to stand right here. I'm not going to back up whenever you're coming towards me. That's going to play some sort of mental warfare and physical warfare towards Colby Covington. So you guys nailed it. The only thing I would add is just escape the clinch as fast as possible. If you're Jorge Masvidal, avoid the clinch at all costs. Stand your ground. Do not take a back step. And we'll see. I think we got to fight if he does that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I love how you mentioned the clinch because that's a very important part of Masvidal's game. That first fight with Usman, he lost it because of the clinch. You know, he got comfortable in the clinch. You should not be able to get too comfortable in the clinch. When he fought Nate Diaz, though, he had good movement in the clinch, I would say. I think the clinch helped him more than ever. So you have to find a happy medium there if you're Jorge Masvidal. Go to the clinch if you want, but of course, be the dominating pressure in that clinch, or else when your back is against the fence, especially against Colby Covington, there's a lot to go wrong there. There is a lot to go wrong. I love how you mentioned the volume of Colby Covington because I think that's very, very important. Colby does not stop throwing. So to make him stop throwing, you have to be able to land those really strong strikes to make him respect your power. And I'm sure Colby already respects Masvidal's power to an extent. They've trained together for years. So I'm sure Colby knows what Masvidal's capable of. He may say it in the promotions that he's not scared of Masvidal and his power. He's seen everything Masvidal's got to offer. But I think if you've seen everything Masvidal has to offer, you should be more scared than more prepared. Honestly, Masvidal is a monster. You should be ready for anything. Masvidal's takedown defense right now is through the roof. Honestly, he fought Kamaru Usman twice. I think he got taken down in the second fight like once, but in the scramble, he got up pretty fast. And I think since Colby Covington doesn't exactly have that raw strength and that raw power as Kamaru Usman does, it's going to be harder to hold down Masvidal here. He's going to have to use technique over power, which granted, Colby's got a lot of technique, but I think Masvidal can muscle his way out. American Top Team has some of the best wrestlers and wrestling coaches they have to offer. Masvidal has basically been training to fight a wrestler for 3 years now, since Ben Askren and Kamaru Usman twice. So I think his wrestling side of things, it's totally changed from what we're used to. And I think it's going to be a whole different Masvidal we see in here come Saturday night.
Yeah, I think both of you guys have made some unbelievable points there. I really, really do. I think if we were trying to create a blueprint on how to beat Colby Covington, you guys have just said 85% of it right there, if not 90%. Couple of things that I'd like to pick up on. First of all, the leg kick point, because I really, really like that. If we look at when Conor McGregor fought Nate Diaz at UFC 202, what was the one thing he did that really slowed up Nate and allowed him to conserve as much of his energy as possible? battering that lead leg kick. Now, yes, he broke his own leg in the process, or broke his ankle, whichever one it was, but it slowed Nate down massively, and Nate's a big pressure fighter. If Masvidal can do something similar to Covington and get him hobbling by the third, fourth round, then Masvidal's chances get a lot better the longer this fight goes on. You have basically got to blow out the tires of the car that's running towards you, slow him up. The second point that I'd like to talk about is the wrestling clinch point, because, Jack, I don't think you could have said that much better. If we look at Jorge Masvidal and we look at American Top Team as a whole, there's three things that Mike Brown is unbelievably good at coaching, both for Poirier and for Masvidal. And we've seen this in spades over the last couple of years. The first is controlling the clinch and getting that clinch spun around to be the dominator against the clinch or against the fence. The second thing that Mike Brown is unbelievably good at coaching is defending the takedown. No one's going to argue he's one of the best at that. And the third is the scramble, controlling the head on the ground and pushing down to get up back onto your feet. And like you said, Hunter, Masvidal did that perfectly against Usman. The fact that Kamaru Usman had to knock out Jorge Masvidal tells you how much better Masvidal's wrestling's become, in my opinion. So Mike Brown is going to be a big part of this fight as far as I'm concerned, because he's going to have Jorge prepped to a T. But I said I was going to talk about the clinch, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. Jorge Masvidal has two really big things that he has to do in this clinch, because it's going to clinch very, very early on. The first thing Masvidal has to do that he did very well against Nate Diaz, that actually led to that sickening leg kick that should have knocked anybody's head into Dana White's lap by the ring or by the octagon. The first thing he has to do is land those machete elbows in the clinch, get Colby bloodied up a bit, get him worse for wear. And there's I'm not saying he has to do that for the reason that you think. The reason he's got to throw those elbows is to get Colby to hold his guard high and open up that body. Whenever he breaks out of the clinch, he's got to throw into the liver. He's got to throw into the ribs and just tenderize that midsection. I cannot emphasize that enough. If I had one piece of advice to give Jorge Masvidal, tenderize that midsection any opportunity you can. When they break out of the clinch, Colby's going to have his guard high, expecting those elbows. Dig that body as much as you can, and he will start wincing, because Colby might have the best cardio in the UFC, but you cannot condition your body to take punishment the way you can condition your head. If there's one golden piece of advice I'm bringing to the table, tenderize that midsection. That's what will win or lose Jorge Masvidal this fight.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys, especially that, look, the body has got to be such an important thing. The body and the legs is how you slow down a guy like Colby Covington, because, think about it. If your legs are dead, if your body's hurting, not only is his game going to slow down, but he's going to have to think about everything he does. So he's going to have to think about every shot he does, which means he's most likely going to telegraph it, which means Masvidal can have a better chance at defending it, breaking off, getting away from the clinch like we talked about, and imposing his own will. Look, guys, we have that fight's going to be bananas. I am so excited. It's the other thing we haven't even factored into this. We're factoring in if there's no emotion involved in this. Mistakes are going to be made from both guys because they're both going to be so emotional going into this fight. I cannot wait. We're going to have another great podcast talking about predictions for it. And obviously the Instagram live. Great podcast, guys.
If I could just interject real quick, I would like to give a quick update of the fantasy scores lately.
Oh, yes, of course.
Just recently, as of a week and 2 weeks ago, Jack has made his spot on the leaderboards, currently getting 2 points from Casey O'Neill and Islam Makhachev, leaving the scores 5 points for me, 2 points for Jack, and a slow start for Keelan at 0. But I'm sure at the later of the year, Keelan will bloom. There you go. The boss's update for fantasy right there.
I hope so.
That was amazing. Well, it's reverse of how we started, right? Because Keelan won and I was in the middle and Hunter was last. So I've stayed put, but flip at the top. I love it. I love it.
Oh, for God's sake.
We have a little bit to go though. We'll see what happens.
But we got plenty of time. It's only month 4 or month 3.
3 months.
Honestly, the math for me today is not on it. I know it's March. It is the 3rd month. I got it, guys. Don't worry.
That's only one number. We're fine. That's only one. We're fine. Doesn't matter. It's just a number. Well, guys, thank you all for listening to the MMA Island Podcast. Not your place for math, but your place for MMA. As always, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and check out our website, MMAisland.net. Again, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. And 9 + 10 is 21.